Hi there, I'm Lacey. It was my birthday, my 38th, and my sister handed me a gift bag that said, "Try harder next year." People laughed. Then she announced her pregnancy, at my party. That was the moment I got up and left. But the truth? That wasn't the beginning. It was just the first time I walked out loud. They used guilt to keep me quiet. They humiliated me with a smile. They even went through my daughter to get under my skin. Why does the family that says they love you hurt you the most? They had the nerve to hang a banner with my name in LED lights, like I was the guest of honor. Like they hadn't just set me up to be humiliated in front of every cousin, uncle, and neighbor within a 100-mile radius. Balloons in shades of blush and ivory swayed in the breeze. The cupcakes looked like they'd been arranged by a wedding planner. Everything was perfect, except the part where I was supposed to feel celebrated. Travis stood beside me, hand on the small of my back. Junie skipped ahead, clutching her homemade card in both hands like it was sacred. Her glitter shoes sparkled under the late afternoon sun. Jody greeted us with that overly bright grin she uses when she's about to pull something. "There she is, birthday girl," she trilled, voice a little too loud. Our mom hovered behind her, already sipping wine and avoiding my eyes. I knew something was off the moment Jody grabbed the microphone. "Let's give my baby sister the gift she deserves," she beamed, dragging out every syllable. A plain white paper bag was handed to me. No ribbon, no wrapping, just a yellow sticky note slapped on crooked. "Try harder next year." The laughter started immediately, some awkward chuckles, a few gasps, but Jody laughed first. Too loud, too long. Inside the bag? A broken lip balm, half-used mints in a crumpled hotel wrapper, and a receipt to a dollar store. No card, no note, no effort. I didn't say a word, just looked at Junie, whose smile had faltered. She held up her glittery card to me like it might undo what had just happened. Before I could even process what the hell was going on, Jody grabbed the mic again. "Oh, before I forget, we're having a baby, number 3. She clutched her stomach dramatically. "Surprise!" The cheers were instant. Mom rushed to hug her. Someone popped a confetti cannon. One of Jody's boys ran to the LED sign and flipped it. It now read, "Auntie again." That's when I knew. This party was never for me. I turned to Junie. "You ready for real cake?" I whispered. She nodded, eyes wide and silent. Travis was already reaching for the car keys. We left our plates untouched, walked out the side gate without a word. No one stopped us. No one called after us. The music swelled behind us, upbeat and artificial, but something cracked open inside me. By the time we pulled into the driveway, the sun had dipped behind the trees, leaving streaks of burnt orange fading into gray. Junie unbuckled herself in silence, still hugging that glittery card like it might undo the humiliation neither of us could voice yet. She walked ahead, letting the screen door creak shut behind her. Inside, the quiet was louder than the party music we'd left behind. Travis placed the card I'd made for my mother on the kitchen counter, wrapped in soft floral paper, tied with lavender ribbon. I'd spent hours crafting it. Photos of us through the years, a handwritten note about the time she nursed me through mono. A memory book. She never opened it. "She won't even look at it," I said softly, my eyes stuck on that untouched ribbon. Travis didn't answer. He just pulled me in, held me like he knew saying anything would cheapen it. Earlier that day, while Junie was busy drawing stars on her birthday cards for her cousins, I had carefully taped down the last photo in that journal. I wanted it to be something Mom would actually keep, something she'd reread when she missed me. I even wrote, "You raised me stronger than you think." Turns out, she didn't want strength. She wanted a replica of Jody. At the party, when I handed her the gift, she blinked twice and said, "Oh, I'll open it later." Her voice was thin, distant. Mom barely finished her sentence before Jody swooped in with a perfectly wrapped electronics box. "Something useful, not sentimental," she laughed. Mom's face lit up like someone flipped a switch. "Oh my God, is this the new health tracker? Jojo, how do you always know exactly what I need?" Everyone clapped. I was still holding the shredded wrapping from my gift. Now, standing in my kitchen, I opened the drawer beside the fridge and slid the unopened card inside, behind old coupons and expired batteries. Maybe I'd mail it to myself someday. Travis handed me a glass of wine and said nothing. That's what I loved about him. He never filled silence just to feel useful. I took a sip, let the burn settle. She sees Jody as the daughter she wished she had, I whispered. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Maybe it's time you stop trying to become what she wants and start being who Junie already sees. That hit harder than anything at the party. My lips trembled. I took another sip. I think I'm done pretending this family works. We heard small footsteps padding down the hallway. Junie appeared, holding the birthday card she'd made for me, pink crayon hearts and stick figures. She looked up. Mom, do you think Aunt Jody meant it, that you should try harder next year? I bent down to her level. No, sweetheart. Some people forget how to be kind. She nodded slowly, then offered her card like a peace offering. I think yours was the prettiest one. I kissed her forehead. That's because it came from someone who actually meant it. After Junie went to bed, I curled up on the couch with a blanket I wasn't cold enough to need. Travis kissed my forehead, whispered he'd be upstairs, and left me in the kind of silence that hums when your brain won't stop. I picked up my phone, not because I wanted to scroll, just to distract my hands. Muscle memory opened Instagram. That's when I saw it. My cousin Molly had posted a slideshow. White and gold decorations, long banquet tables under string lights, a 3-tier cake shaped like intertwined rings. Her caption? 50 years of love, couldn't imagine better parents. Cheers to the best night ever. I stared. My chest tightened. I hadn't been invited. I hadn't even known it happened. They threw a 50th anniversary party for my parents. Big, flashy, catered. And I wasn't even told. Not a text. Not a lie to cover it. Just nothing. My thumb hovered over the comment section. Should I pretend I didn't see it? Should I like the post to keep the peace? My heart beat against my ribs like it wanted out. I opened my messages, typed, me. I didn't know about the anniversary party. Read. No reply. 20 minutes later, Mom. We didn't think you'd want to come. You've been distant. Distant? After they watched my sister mock me in front of my child and said nothing? I had been quiet, not distant. There's a difference. I set the phone down and let my head fall back. The ceiling spun a little. I closed my eyes, and like it always does, memory came rushing in. I was 10. I'd gotten the lead in our school play. Weeks of rehearsal. I made my own poster, colored every star. Opening night came, and I scanned every row, holding my breath. Empty seats where my parents were supposed to be. Afterward, Mom said, Jody had volleyball tryouts. You understand, right? And I did. Or I said I did. I always did. Because being the easy one was the only way I knew to get any scraps of attention. Back in the present, I opened the bottom drawer of the side table. Inside was a folder labeled Family. I hadn't touched it in a while, but it was there. Screenshots, emails, a birthday message from 2 years ago that just read, Happy birthday. No punctuation, no name. A printed message where Mom called Jody, our rock, our pride. The same year she told me, You're hard to read. I flipped through the pages. One by one, they whispered the same thing. You've never been chosen. Not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even as a daughter worth remembering. By the time Saturday morning arrived, I had almost convinced myself the past week hadn't chipped at me as badly as it did. Then my phone rang. Mom. Jody's babysitter canceled last minute, she began without greeting. Can you pick up the boys from soccer and keep them a few hours? I blinked. Why can't you? My back's flaring again, and you're the most dependable. That word, dependable, landed like a backhanded compliment. I agreed, like always. And I hated that about myself. 2 hours later, I was pulling up to my parents' house with Jody's boys in the back seat, talking about juice boxes and video games like nothing was off, like their mom hadn't turned my birthday into a punchline 7 days earlier. At the barbecue, no one thanked me for picking them up. Not Jody, not Mom. The boys ran off, and I was left holding a half-empty sports bottle and a wrinkled jacket like the help who showed up early. The lawn buzzed with conversation. Folding tables groaned with potato salad and ribs. Uncle Rick called out across the yard, Still doing that online gig, Lacey? Before I could respond, Jody chimed in. She edits company emails, internal stuff. It's cute. Mom laughed. Well, at least it keeps her busy. My face flushed. I stared at my plate, untouched. Last week, I presented a full pitch deck to the board and secured an extra $15,000 in departmental funding. But sure, let's talk about how I'm kept busy. I glanced at Travis, who sat beside me chewing slower than usual. He didn't say anything, but his jaw was tight. He always knew when I was clenching words between my teeth. Inside my head, something whispered, "One more time. If they do this one more time." After dessert, Jody passed by me with her third glass of wine and muttered, "You always take things so seriously. It's just family. Don't be so sensitive." That line again, that lazy dismissal. I gave a polite nod and started gathering empty plates. Travis leaned in, voice low. "You good?" I smiled too wide. "Peachy." But in my chest, the line had already been drawn. 3 days after the barbecue, I was brushing Junie's hair after her bath, mentally ticking through my work emails and wondering if I had enough energy to care about dinner. Travis was downstairs loading the dishwasher. The house smelled faintly of lemon soap and the lavender lotion Junie insisted on. Just as I leaned down to kiss her cheek goodnight, my phone buzzed on the dresser. Mom lit up the screen. Without thinking, I answered. She was already crying. "You've made everything so tense lately," she sniffed. "Jody's trying so hard, and you're making her feel unwanted." I blinked, stunned. "I didn't even say anything at that barbecue." "Exactly," she said, voice rising. "You just sat there. All that sulking made it awkward for everyone. She was trying to lighten the mood. You used to laugh with us." I took a deep breath, held it, then said, flatly, before I realized I was the punchline. She sniffled louder. "You don't know how much this hurts me." I stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door gently behind me. "You're crying because I didn't fake laugh when your favorite daughter mocked my career in front of a table full of people?" There was silence. "You want me to comfort you because you let her humiliate me, and I didn't perform happiness on cue?" Still no answer. I kept going, my voice low but clear. "You can't keep calling it keeping the peace when you only protect the loudest person in the room." She finally muttered, "You used to be easier." "No," I said, sharper now. "I used to be smaller. I used to shrink myself to fit inside whatever quiet corner made you most comfortable." Her breath hitched on the other end, but I didn't wait. I hung up. Downstairs, Travis looked up from the sink when he heard the click of my phone hitting the kitchen counter. "You all right?" he asked, wiping his hands. "Not yet," I said, pouring a glass of water, but I finally said it. He stepped closer, gave me a quiet nod. That voice has waited a long time. I took a sip and let the silence settle. The weekend crept in quiet, like the calm before a storm you know is coming but can't quite name. By Saturday morning, the air felt too still. That's when the doorbell rang. A pink box sat on the front porch. Junie squealed, "It has stickers! It's from Aunt Jody!" I didn't even have to see the handwriting to know. She pulled the lid off with hopeful hands. Inside, a stuffed elephant missing one eye, broken crayons, a paperback with a torn cover, and a bent index card that read, "Thought of you, Aunt Jody." Junie's face changed instantly. "Did I do something bad?" I knelt beside her. "No, baby, you didn't." She blinked at me, lip trembling. I stood up, gathered the items, and walked straight to the kitchen trash bin. Junie didn't say anything, just followed me with wide, confused eyes. That night, after tucking her in and kissing her forehead twice, I checked my phone. Missed call. No voicemail icon. But when I opened my inbox, I saw the transcript. Jody's voice, snide and slow. "You think you're protecting her? You're just making her soft. She'll pick her side eventually. Let's see if she picks the dramatic mom or the family that actually shows up." I didn't feel the usual burn, just a cold kind of clarity. Travis read over my shoulder. "She actually said that?" I nodded, already moving toward the office. Laptop open, fingers steady. Subject, formal no contact request. Juniper Tanner. I CC'd the school principal, attached the voicemail file, added a note. "We are requesting no further unsupervised contact with this individual." Travis leaned in the doorway. "You're serious." "No more polite fences," I said. "No more letting them choose what hurts gets ignored." He crossed his arms. "You're doing the right thing." It doesn't feel brave, I admitted. It feels overdue, he shrugged. Sometimes those are the same thing. 5 days passed. I thought the cease and desist, the school email, the attached voicemail, surely that would be the line in the sand. But people like Jody don't retreat. They regroup. Wednesday afternoon, I pulled into the school pickup line, window cracked for fresh air. Junie climbed into the back seat, hugging her backpack, then held out a pastel pink envelope with shaky hands. Miss Lauren gave this to me. She said Auntie Jody dropped it off and asked her to pass it along. I froze. My fingers closed around the envelope and I opened it right there in the front seat. If you ever feel sad or confused, Auntie Jody loves you. Even if your mom says no, you can always call me. Junie bit her lip. Did I make someone mad? No, sweetheart, I said, voice even. You didn't do anything wrong. But my hands were trembling so hard the note nearly tore. That night I skipped dinner, went straight to my laptop, filed a second notice, this time a formal cease and desist with a copy sent to our family attorney and the school district superintendent. This isn't family anymore, I told Travis. This is sabotage. She used someone else's name to bypass a legal order, he added, pacing the kitchen. She's crossing boundaries on purpose now, I nodded, and I'm done sending warnings. 2 days later, Dad's name flashed across my screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then came a text. Heard about your letter to the school. Overreacting doesn't help anyone. Later that night, Jody posted a selfie online. New SUV, bow still on the hood. Caption, Thanks, Dad, you always believed in me. I stared at the screen for a beat too long, then turned it off. No tears this time, just a soft, unfamiliar sense of certainty. I scrolled back to the message from Dad, hovered over the reply field, then hit delete. They're not losing me, I whispered to myself. I'm releasing them. Dinner was simmering on the stove, rosemary chicken, Junie's favorite, when my phone buzzed on the counter. Group text from Mom. I wiped my hands, unlocked the screen, and froze. There it was. Don't expect much from Lacey. She's always been overly sensitive. Just let her have this tantrum. Attached beneath the message was a picture of Junie, at school, on the playground, laughing. Someone had snapped it, probably Jody, and my mother had shared it casually, like Junie was part of a conversation I hadn't been invited into. Travis walked in just as I put the phone down. She didn't mean to send that to you, huh? He asked, reading my face. No, but she meant every word. I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw anything. Instead, I walked to my desk, pulled out a folder titled Family, and opened my laptop. Every voicemail, every screenshot, every message that made my stomach twist over the years. I compiled them into a single PDF. No edits, no commentary. Subject, in case you're wondering why we stopped showing up. I attached the file, BCC'd every adult in our family tree, clicked send. By the time the chicken hit the table, replies had already begun to roll in. I had no idea. We always thought something was off. You did the right thing? My aunt unfollowed Jody publicly. A cousin shared the email in another family group chat. Someone screenshotted Jody's SUV post and wrote, "So this is what loyalty looks like?" I didn't reply to any of them. Just watched the dust swirl. Then I went to my messages. Blocked Mom. Blocked Jody. That silence? It wasn't an absence. It was a boundary, not an escape, a strategy. For once, I wasn't biting my tongue. I was letting the truth speak louder than any microphone they'd ever grabbed first. 2 weeks passed, the silence stayed, no apology, no explanation, just absence. Then, a thin envelope slid through our mailbox, my mother's handwriting on the front. Inside was a mass-produced sympathy card, printed cursive. We miss our family, hope to reconnect someday. I flipped it over. Blank, no note, no name. I grabbed a sticky note, scribbled 4 words. So did I, once. I stuck it to the front and mailed it back. No return address, just space. Meanwhile, Jody vanished from social media. Her page is gone. Photos deleted. The SUV post erased like it never existed. I didn't rejoice. I didn't gloat. I just made pancakes. Junie, now freer in ways too quiet to measure, laughed more these days. She started drawing galaxies, whole constellations taped across her bedroom ceiling. They don't buzz in my chest anymore, she told me one night as I tucked her in. Buzz? You know, that feeling when people act nice, but it's really sharp underneath. I kissed her cheek. That feeling has a name, and you're allowed to leave it behind. One Saturday morning, I got an email from a parent at her school. Hey, Lacey, would Junie like to come to Ava's birthday party? She and my daughter talk about stars all day. I smiled, replied yes. Normal. It felt normal. At family day at school, Junie chose me. Each kid painted a picture of what family means. Hers? A swirl of soft pinks and blues, a small figure holding an umbrella under a sky of stars. In the corner, her caption read, "Safe is better than big." I didn't cry in front of her. I just squeezed her hand. That night, I opened my laptop to check work email. One unread message, no subject line. It was from Jody. Are you happy now? You won? I hovered over it, then clicked delete. No reply, no need. Because I didn't win, I walked away. And finally, I never looked back. Some people inherit furniture, some people inherit silence. I turned mine into a boundary. And finally, peace had room to breathe. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And silence? It's not always surrender. It can be the strongest boundary you'll ever set. For years, I tried to earn love by shrinking myself. I stayed quiet to keep the peace. I laughed at jokes that stung, showed up to events where I was invisible, and called it family. But here's what I know now. Being loyal to people who hurt you isn't love. It's self-abandonment. I don't tell this story because I want sympathy. I tell it because maybe someone watching has been biting their tongue too long. Maybe you've mistaken survival for harmony. If that's you, it's not too late to stop. You don't owe anyone your silence, especially when it's costing you your self-worth. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from people who were supposed to protect you? What gave you the strength to finally say enough? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Even just drop a if this resonated with you, or type 1 if you've ever felt invisible around your own family. Tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know which city or state you're in. It helps this small community feel a little closer. And if this video touched something in you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There are more stories coming, real, raw, and sometimes messy, but always with one goal, to remind you that your voice matters, your story is valid, and healing is possible. Thanks for being here. I see you.
My name is Kelly Riley. I'm 27 years old. I recently graduated from the University of Kentucky with a fine arts degree. Life after college can be tough, but my story isn't just about growing up. It's about family, betrayal, and finding strength in hard times. My mom, Helen Riley, was my rock. She was a talented chef and a business owner. She wasn't just great at cooking, she was also a careful planner. She built her life with purpose, always making sure I was safe and taken care of. Even before she got sick with cancer, she planned for the future, both hers and mine. Her most treasured possession was the family bakery. She started it from nothing, pouring her heart into its success. When she passed away 5 years ago, she left it to me. She wanted me to have something to hold on to, a piece of her that would always stay with me. Kelly, this bakery is more than just a business, she used to say. It's our home, our roots. You will always have a place to call yours. Even while fighting cancer, she focused on preparing me for life without her. She taught me everything about running the bakery, from handling staff to working with suppliers. Her way of loving me was making sure I'd be ready, and I carry that with me every day. But life wasn't always easy. My parents were married for 11 years before it all fell apart. I was just a child when my dad, Larry Riley, left us for another woman. There were no big fights or court battles, just a quiet goodbye. He moved on quickly and married Janet, a younger woman who stepped into the role of wife and mother right away. Soon after, they had a daughter, Amy. I visited sometimes, but I never really felt like I belonged. I never really felt like I belonged in their new family. Janet was always polite but distant. She treated me more like a guest than part of the household. Kelly, would you like to stay for dinner? She would ask, but her tone made it clear she hoped I'd say no. My dad was always busy with work. He said he needed to provide for his family, but most of the time, it felt like I wasn't part of that family. My half-sister, Amy, was 11 years younger and the center of their world. Janet adored her, braiding her hair, cheering for her every small achievement. It was hard not to feel like an outsider. Even so, my relationship with my dad remained polite but distant. He paid for my college tuition all at once, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of duty. It was his way of helping without actually being there. I didn't question it. At the time, I thought it was the best I could get. I had no idea that my mother's careful planning and my father's hidden motives would lead to a storm I never saw coming. Losing my mother was the hardest thing I've ever been through. Helen Riley wasn't just my mom. She was my biggest supporter, the person who made me believe I could do anything. When she passed away from cancer 5 years ago, just weeks before I was supposed to leave for college, my whole world fell apart. The grief was unbearable. It felt like a part of me was missing. For weeks, I could barely get out of bed. I was numb, unable to believe she was really gone. That's when my father, Larry Riley, did something unexpected. He, Janet, and Amy moved into our house temporarily to support me. At the time, I was too overwhelmed to question it. I was just grateful to have people around, even if our relationship had always been strained. "We're here for you, Kelly," my dad said, placing a hand on my shoulder. Janet nodded, her expression carefully sympathetic. Even Amy was unusually kind, though I noticed her eyes wandering around the house, taking in every detail like she was visiting a museum. At first, having them there felt like a small relief. Janet handled meals and kept the house in order. Dad helped with the endless paperwork that comes with losing a loved one. Amy would sit with me, chatting about school and her friends, giving me small moments of distraction from my pain. It felt strange, but in those moments, almost comforting. As summer ended and my college start date got closer, I had no idea how much things were about to change. I had a tough choice to make. What to do with the house. Selling it was out of the question. It was my mother's legacy, the home she worked so hard to keep for us. But leaving it empty for 5 years didn't seem like a good idea either. That's when my dad made a suggestion. "Kelly," he said one morning over coffee, "why don't we stay here while you're at school? We'll take care of the bills, keep up the house, and you won't have to worry about anything." Janet, flipping pancakes at the stove, added, "It would be good for everyone. Amy loves her school here, and the house will be in great hands." At the time, it seemed like the best solution. I agreed, thankful for their help, and left for college believing my mother's home and her memory would be safe. College was a whirlwind of classes, assignments, and late-night study sessions. But coming home during breaks always felt like stepping into another world. At first, it was just a familiar place to return to, but over time, I noticed something surprising. The family dynamic in my mother's house was changing. When I came home for my first break, Janet greeted me with a warm smile and a home-cooked meal. "Welcome back, Kelly. I made lasagna, your favorite," she said, setting the table as if she'd always known what I liked. Amy, my half-sister, was excited to show me her latest artwork. "Look, Kelly, do you think I should add more blue here?" she asked, her excitement contagious. For the first time, she treated me like a real sister, not just someone who visited occasionally. As the years went by, my visits home became more than just a chance to rest. They started to feel like I was part of something bigger. During Christmas, we decorated the tree together, playfully arguing over ornaments. "Tinsel is so tacky," Janet would say. I'd laugh and insist, "No, it's classics." Dad would lift Amy up to place the star on top, smiling like this was the family he had always dreamed of. Those moments felt real, warm, almost like we were truly a family. Summer breaks were even more relaxed. Amy and I spent lazy afternoons at the community pool or binge-watched movies with bowls of popcorn. Janet even invited me to her book club, where we talk about romance novels and laugh at the plot twists. "Kelly always has the best insights," Janet told her friends one evening. For the first time, I felt truly included. Even my dad seemed different. He wasn't as distant as before. He joined us for dinners and asked about my classes, really listening to what I had to say. "Your mom would be so proud of you," he told me one evening, his voice full of emotion. Moments like that made me feel like I wasn't just a visitor, I was part of the family. Over time, I started to see Janet and Amy in a new way. Janet, who once felt distant, became almost motherly. She always checked in on me, asked about my life, and made sure I felt at home. Amy's energy and constant talking filled the house with life. She looked up to me, asking for advice, making me feel like a real older sister for the first time. Even the house changed a little with each visit. Janet added small touches, a new set of curtains, a carefully placed centerpiece on the dining table. But everything still fit with the warmth my mom had created. It felt like we were all building something together, keeping the past alive while moving forward. By the time I graduated, I truly believed we had become a family. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. I never imagined how fragile it all was, how quickly it could fall apart under the weight of hidden secrets. Graduating from college felt like the start of a new life. After 5 years of studying, late-night cramming, and dreaming about the future, I finally had my degree. I had landed a job back in my hometown, and the idea of returning to the house I grew up in filled me with comfort and excitement. My mother's house, my house, was waiting for me, a place where I could settle down and start my career. The day I arrived home, the sun was shining, and the air felt warm and full of promise. As the taxi pulled up to the driveway, I smiled at the familiar sight of the house. The garden looked well cared for, though the roses my mom had planted looked a little different from how she used to tend them. The house felt the same, yet subtly changed by Janet's small updates, new curtains, a fresh coat of paint on the shutters. It still looked welcoming. I couldn't wait to step inside and reclaim my room. Dragging my suitcases up the walkway, I reached for my keys, eager to walk into the home that had always been my safe place. I slid the key into the lock. It wouldn't turn. Frowning, I tried again, jiggling it slightly. Still nothing. Confused, I tried once more. The door wouldn't open. I muttered to myself, "What the hell?" and knocked hard on the door. This had to be a mistake. Maybe they changed the lock and forgot to give me a new key. After a moment, the door opened, and Janet stood there. Her expression shifted quickly from surprise to discomfort. She was wearing an apron dusted with flour, like she had been baking. "Kelly," she said hesitantly, "what are you doing here?" I rolled my suitcase inside, ignoring the awkward tone in her voice. "What do you mean?" "I live here," I said, looking around the living room. It felt different. The furniture was rearranged. A new rug. Small changes, but enough to feel unfamiliar. "Why were the locks changed?" I asked. Before Janet could answer, Dad walked in from the living room. His face was pale, and he moved stiffly. Amy followed behind him, looking nervous, but staying quiet. "Kelly," Dad started, rubbing the back of his neck, a sure sign he was uncomfortable. "Let's talk in the office for a minute." A bad feeling settled in my stomach as I followed him into my mom's old office. Her books and certificates still lined the walls, but the air felt heavy, like even the room knew what was coming. Dad shut the door behind us and turned to face me. His hands were shaking slightly. "Kelly," he said in a low voice. "There's something I need to tell you." He paused, struggling with the words. Janet thinks this house belongs to me." I blinked, not understanding. "What are you talking about?" "Mom left this house to me. It's in her will." He nodded but wouldn't meet my eyes. "I know. But when we moved in, I told Janet it was mine. That I had given it to your mom out of kindness after the divorce, and when she passed, it came back to me." The betrayal hit me like a punch to the stomach. "You lied to her? For 5 years? You let her believe this was your house? And now you're saying she doesn't even know it belongs to me?" Dad's shoulders slumped. "I didn't think it would matter," he muttered. "You were at college and we needed a place to stay. I thought it would be temporary." Anger and disbelief surged through me. "Temporary? This is my house, Dad. Mom's house. And you're telling me you've been living here, letting Janet act like it's hers, while lying to both of us?" "I was going to tell her the truth," he said weakly, but it didn't sound convincing. "Just give me some time to figure out how to handle this." I shook my head, my anger boiling over. "You've already had 5 years, Dad." At that moment, Janet knocked on the door, her voice sharp. "Is everything okay in there?" The air was thick with tension, But one thing was clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. I wasn't going to let them keep up this act. The first few days back in the house were uncomfortable, but I told myself things would get better. After my argument with Dad, I decided to stay quiet for now, hoping he would fix things like he promised. But almost right away, things in the house changed. Janet's attitude shifted, and it wasn't long before she started acting differently toward me. At first, it was little things, comments that sounded nice but had a hidden edge. "Kelly, I reorganized the pantry to make it more efficient. You probably didn't notice since you've been so busy with college," she'd say with an overly sweet smile. Then came the accidents. One morning, I found my favorite blouse in the laundry, ruined with bright pink stains. "Oh dear," Janet said when I asked her about it, her voice full of fake concern. "I must have mixed up the laundry baskets." These things happen when a house gets too crowded. Even Amy, who used to be excited to spend time with me, started acting cold. She rolled her eyes when I walked into the room and referred to me as that girl when talking on the phone with her friends. One evening, I overheard her whispering, "Mom says it's weird you're still here." The words hurt more than I expected. Janet's passive-aggressive behavior soon became more direct. One evening, as I poured myself a cup of coffee, she cornered me in the kitchen, arms crossed, her expression cold. "Kelly, have you thought about getting your own place?" she asked, her tone light, but her words sharp. "You're starting a new job soon. It's time to think about living on your own. You're a grown woman, after all." I gripped my coffee mug, forcing myself to stay calm. "Actually, I've talked to Dad about staying here for a while."
"He's fine with it," I said.
Her lips pressed into a thin line. For a second, I thought she might argue. But instead, she turned and walked away without another word. The next morning, I woke up to find the living room rearranged. My mother's favorite vase had been moved to a dusty corner. It didn't match the new aesthetic, Janet said when I asked her about it. My frustration grew, but I bit my tongue. I knew arguing wouldn't change anything. The tension in the house was unbearable, and Janet made it very clear she wanted me gone. I wasn't welcome. Amy followed her mother's lead, treating me with disrespect. Even Dad, who had always been my safe place, seemed distant. He avoided eye contact and started leaving the house early in the morning, always saying he had work. I felt like a stranger in my own home. Family dinners became tense and uncomfortable. Janet made just enough food for 4 people, then acted surprised when I sat at the table. "Oh, I didn't think you'd be here for dinner," she'd say with a fake smile, but her eyes were cold. Amy would giggle at her mother's words, and Dad would sit silently, refusing to get involved. Day by day, the isolation wore me down. I spent more time in my room, avoiding the cold stares and snide remarks. But even there, I couldn't escape the heavy feeling of betrayal. This wasn't just about Janet anymore. It was about my father, the man who stood by and let it happen. I threw myself into my new job and tried to reconnect with old friends, hoping to distract myself. But no matter what I did, the tension at home lingered. Every day, it felt like I was being slowly pushed out of my own life. Then came Thursday morning. The house was unusually quiet. No sound of Janet baking in the kitchen. No music from Amy's room. No sports murmuring from the TV, where Dad usually sat. The silence felt eerie, like the house itself was holding its breath. I got out of bed and walked downstairs. "Hello, Janet?"
"Dad."
I called out. No answer. The kitchen was spotless. Not just clean, but untouched, like no one had been there since the night before. The living room looked too perfect, with the throw pillows neatly arranged on the couch. Even the usual clutter, Amy's shoes, Janet's handbag, was gone. I glanced outside. Dad's car wasn't in the driveway. Confused, I checked my phone, expecting a message or a note explaining where they were. Nothing. I called Dad's number. It went straight to voicemail. Frowning, I tried again. No answer. Reluctantly, I called Janet. She picked up on the 5th ring. Her voice was sharp and impatient. "What do you want, Kelly?" she snapped. In the background, I heard the sound of waves and tropical music. "I just wanted to know where everyone is," I said, surprised by Janet's harsh tone. I woke up and the house was empty. She laughed, a sharp, cruel laugh. Oh, didn't we tell you? We're in the New Caledonia. First-class flights, luxury resort, the works. Her voice dripped with mockery. We didn't mention it because, honestly, we didn't want you tagging along and expecting us to pay for you.
What?
I stammered, shock and anger mixing in my chest. Janet, what are you talking about? You left without saying anything. Save it, she snapped. I'm done with this whole situation. You're nothing but a freeloader living in our house, mooching off us like you own the place. Your father might tolerate it, but I won't. Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a grown woman squatting in her home? Her words felt like a slap. But she wasn't done. When we get back, I want you gone. Pack your things and leave, Kelly. And don't think you can guilt your father into letting you stay. He agrees with me. He's just too spineless to tell you himself. We've already blocked your number. Have a nice life. The line went dead before I could even respond. For a moment, I just stood there, gripping my phone, her cruel words echoing in my head. The betrayal hit me like a tidal wave. Then something inside me snapped. The sadness, the disbelief, it all melted away. Pure, focused anger took its place. This was my house. My mother's house. And I was done playing nice. I spent the rest of the day packing their belongings. Janet's designer clothes, Amy's school supplies, Dad's golf clubs. Everything. I stacked the boxes neatly in the garage, making sure there wasn't a single trace of them left inside. Every move felt like taking back a part of myself. By evening, I called a locksmith. Can you change the locks immediately? I asked, my voice steady. He arrived within the hour, replacing every lock in the house while I stood by, gripping the new keys like a lifeline. It cost a small fortune, but I didn't care. When I closed the door behind him, I exhaled. This was my house again.
And no one was going to take it from me.
Sunday evening. I pulled into the driveway after a long day at work, and there they were. Their car was parked outside. Janet, Dad, and Amy stood near the front steps, surrounded by their boxes and suitcases from the garage. Janet's face was red with rage, her hands waving wildly as she spoke to Dad. Amy stood back, scowling. Dad wore his usual look of quiet discomfort. And as soon as they saw me, the real fight began. I stepped out of my car. Janet's voice exploded. How dare you change the locks? She screamed, storming toward me. This is our house. You have no right to lock us out. I ignored her shouting and walked past them, heading straight for the front door. Janet followed, her voice getting louder with every step. This is illegal. We're calling the police. You think you can just throw us out like we're nothings? I stopped at the door and turned to face her. Something inside me felt calm, steady, even, as her words came at me like poison. No, Janet, I said firmly. This isn't your house. It never was. This house belongs to me. My mother left it to me in her will. The only reason you've been living here is because I allowed it. And now I'm done. Her face twisted in shock. She spun toward Dad, who stood frozen by the car. Larry, tell her she's lying. Tell her this is our house, she demanded, her voice sharp. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He shifted uncomfortably, then finally mumbled, She's telling the truth. Janet's anger exploded. You lied to me? She shrieked, glaring at him. You let me believe this was your house, that you were doing her a favor by letting her stay? What else haven't you told me? She turned back to me, her expression shifting from rage to fake sweetness. Kelly, sweetheart, she cooed, her voice suddenly soft. We've had so many good times here, holiday dinners, book club nights. This is a family home. Surely we can work something out. No, I said, cutting her off. We can't. Your things are in the garage. Take them and leave. Her fake kindness crumbled. You ungrateful little. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? You'd throw your own family out on the streets. You've never treated me like family, I said, my voice steady. And don't pretend this is about loyalty. You tried to steal my house, Janet.
My mother's house.
Dad finally stepped forward, his voice shaking. Kelly, please. I know I've made mistakes, but we're family. We can work this out. Just let us stay a little longer. I shook my head. My voice was firm.
No, Dad.
You lied to her, and you lied to me. You let her erase every trace of Mom from this house while you stood by and said nothing. I won't let you keep doing this. Janet's face twisted with desperation. You can't do this. We'll fight you on this, Kelly. I opened the door and stepped inside, turning back one last time. You're welcome to try, I said simply. Then I closed the door firmly behind me. Through the window, I watched them realize it was over. I watched as they packed the last of their things into the car. Janet screamed. Amy cried. Dad just looked defeated. As the car pulled away, I felt something lift from my chest. The house was mine again, truly mine. In the days after they left, the house felt strangely quiet. But instead of feeling lonely, I felt at peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells or bracing for Janet's rude comments. The space was mine again. And with it came a clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. This wasn't just my mother's house anymore. It was my sanctuary, my chance to start fresh. Cutting ties with my father and his family wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Dad tried to reach out a few times, calling from different numbers and leaving voicemails full of apologies and promises. I didn't answer. His words felt empty after everything he had allowed to happen. I love you, Kelly, he said in one message. I was just trying to keep the peace. But peace built on lies isn't peace at all. And I wasn't going to compromise my dignity just to make him comfortable. Janet never bothered to contact me. She had made her feelings clear. Amy's silence hurt more than I expected, but I reminded myself she was just a kid, caught in the middle of her parents' choices. Even so, I knew it was better to let go of the toxic relationships that had weighed me down for so long. With them gone, I focused on rebuilding my life. The first step was reclaiming the house, not just physically, but emotionally. I moved the furniture back the way my mom had arranged it. I repainted the walls in warm, soft colors that reminded me of her. I replanted the roses in the garden, choosing the same colors she had loved. Every small change felt like I was honoring her memory while making the space my own. Work became my anchor. My job at Marshall & Brooks Financial was challenging but fulfilling. I threw myself into it, and over time, my colleagues became friends. Laura from the risk assessment team became a close confidant. Our lunch breaks were filled with laughter and talks about future plans. But the most meaningful project was restoring my mother's bakery. It had been closed since she passed. It took months of planning and late nights, but eventually, the doors reopened. I stood behind the counter, breathing in the warm scent of fresh bread and pastries. A wave of pride washed over me. The bakery wasn't just a business, it was her legacy. And now, it was mine to carry forward. In quiet moments, I thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the loss of people I once called family. But I didn't let bitterness consume me. Instead, I saw it as a chapter in my story, one that taught me the importance of boundaries, self-respect, and the strength to start over. Healing isn't easy. It isn't a straight path. But as I stood in my mother's house, surrounded by the life I was building, I felt something I hadn't in years.
Hope.
My mother always believed in planning for the future. Now I understood why. She had given me everything I needed to stand on my own, even when the people I trusted let me down. As I looked out at the garden, the roses blooming in the soft evening light, I knew I was ready to move forward. This house, this life, it was mine, and I would build it into something beautiful, for her, for myself, and for the future she always wanted me to have. I'm Emma, a 19-year-old college student from Michigan. Life hasn't been easy. My parents divorced when I was 14, and I've lived with my mom since. Last year, my dad passed away from cancer, which was really hard for me because we were very close. He left me some money in his will, which I could only access once I turned 19. That day finally came this year, and I was hopeful about what it could mean for my future. But then something unexpected happened. something I'm still trying to make sense of. One afternoon, my stepdad, Scott, who's in his mid-30s and has been married to my mom for 6 years, called me into his room. We've never had a great relationship, but I always tried to be polite. Unfortunately, he didn't always treat me the same way. "Emma, I need to talk to you about something important," he said. I felt uneasy. I could tell it wasn't going to be good news. "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep calm. He brought up the money my dad had left me. "I think you should give it to your stepbrother, Tyler. He needs it for college," he said. I was shocked. "Wait, what? You're asking me to give my inheritance to Tyler? He wants to go to college just like I do, but I can't believe you'd ask me to just give up my dad's money." Scott didn't seem bothered by my reaction. "Emma, don't be silly. You don't need that money. Tyler needs it more than you do." I took a deep breath and stood my ground. "I'm sorry, Scott, but the answer is no." I could feel my heart racing. He didn't like my answer. "Don't push me, Emma," he warned, his tone sharp. "Calm down, Scott. I answered you honestly," I said, trying to keep the peace. "Saying no isn't to disrespect you. I just have to set boundaries here. If saying no makes you mad, maybe you need to think about that." The tension between us was thick. I added, "Let's try to be civil. Don't forget you're a guest in this house too." Before he could say anything else, I turned and walked away, my heart racing. Honestly, I wasn't surprised by Scott's behavior. He always acted like he deserved more than he did, and I figured he'd ask me for the money at some point. You might wonder where my mom was during all this. Well, that's another story. My mom, Angela, never seemed to notice any of Scott's bad sides. No matter what he did, she stood by him, almost like she was under a spell. I knew she loved me, but I didn't want to ruin her view of him, so I tried to get along with Scott for her sake. It was funny, though. I was one of the youngest in the house, but I often felt like I was the most mature. My mom was out of town, which is why she wasn't around to step in. If she had been home, I'm sure she would have been furious at Scott for making this request. That's probably why he felt like he could try to boss me around now, thinking he could push me since my mom wasn't there. But he didn't know that I saw right through his plan. As I walked out, I could hear Scott behind me, yelling and calling me a bad sister for not wanting to give Tyler the money. That wasn't fair. I didn't want to help Tyler, but I didn't want to be used for my inheritance. I wasn't responsible for Tyler's choices or his future. Scott and Tyler both had this sneaky way of planning things together, like cartoon characters scheming, but I still couldn't figure out who was the bigger troublemaker. "Hey, don't walk away while I'm talking to you," Scott shouted after me. "You need to listen and do what's right. Can you give me one good reason for that?" I shot back, feeling my frustration build up. Our argument woke up Tyler, who walked over, looking a little unsure. "Tyler, tell Emma what we talked about earlier," Scott said. Tyler hesitated, then found his confidence. "Oh, right, the inheritance money," he said. "Yeah, Emma, Dad and I were talking, and we think you should give us the money for something important." "What important thing?" I asked, feeling my heart pound. "You know, the business," he replied. "What business?" I said, confused. "You told me this money was for college tuition." I felt anger and disbelief rising. They were trying to push me into giving up what was rightfully mine. This wasn't just about money. It was about standing up for myself and being respected. "Emma, we're family. We need to help each other," Tyler said. "College is expensive, and I don't want to put all that on Mom." "If you could just be a little generous," Tyler started, but I cut him off. "Generous? You want me to just hand over my dad's hard-earned money because you think I don't need it? That's not how this works, Tyler. I have plans for that money. It's not just lying around for anyone to take." Scott jumped in. "Emma, think about how we're all struggling. We're family, and family helps each other, right?" I shook my head, feeling frustrated. "Family doesn't just take without giving back, Scott. I'm not a cash machine. I don't owe you or Tyler anything." As I stood there, I realized how much I needed to stand up for myself. My dad had always fought for what he believed in, and I wanted to honor him by doing the same. I wasn't going to let Scott or Tyler walk all over me. I took a deep breath to stay calm. "Look, I get that college is important, and I do want the best for both of you. But I have my own future to think about, and I can't give up my plans for you." Scott looked shocked, his his mouth open, while Tyler shuffled awkwardly next to him. I felt stronger as I went on. I'm not saying I won't help someday, but right now I need to focus on my own education and plans. I hope you can understand that. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I needed to be true to myself and my dad's memory. Scott and Tyler might be upset, but I was done being the person they turned to whenever they needed something. I deserved to have my own dreams, and I'd fight for them. With that, I turned and walked away, my heart pounding, but my head held high. I didn't look back, though Scott's sharp tone echoed in my mind as I replayed our earlier conversation. Tyler chimed in, trying to sound eager. Oh, yes, I need the money for college. It's for me.
Thanks.
His response felt fake, almost like he'd practiced it. I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Nice try, Tyler, but the answer is still no, I said, standing firm. Why not, Emma? Scott asked, his voice edged with annoyance. I crossed my arms, feeling the tension grow. We'll see about that, I replied, refusing to back down. The rest of the evening was thick with silence, the air filled with unspoken words. Scott was known for his silly pranks and attempts to get on my nerves, but this felt different, more serious, almost desperate. I was starting to see just how immature and selfish Scott really was. I didn't want to tell my mom right away. I wanted to handle this myself, especially after overhearing that strange conversation earlier. Emma, stop playing games. You need to be an adult and do the right thing, Scott said, raising his voice. And you think the right thing is giving away my money? I shot back, shocked. Are you serious, Scott? Maybe I should tell Mom about this. Don't tell Angela anything, he said, his tone suddenly dark. Why not? She's my mom, and she deserves to know how I'm being treated. He shrugged, like my concerns didn't matter. Do you think she really cares? I'm just trying to help you, Emma. If you bring this up, she'll get upset with you for wasting her time and being selfish. Well, that's a chance I'm willing to take, I said, standing firm. I'm warning you, don't tell her, he replied, his voice angrier than I'd ever heard. It seemed like he was hiding something big, especially about that business idea Tyler had mentioned. They probably thought I was too clueless to understand, but I was determined to find out what they were up to. Later, I called my mom. Hey, Mom, how are you? I'm good, baby. How about you? She replied, sounding cheerful. Not so great, Mom. Something feels off with Scott and Tyler, especially Scott. He's acting really strange. Oh, Emma, don't be dramatic. I know you don't really like him, but he's not that bad. Mom, he asked me for the inheritance money.
What?
No, he wouldn't do that, she said, sounding shocked. He did, Mom. Both him and Tyler. They actually demanded it. She was quiet for a moment. I don't believe it. Scott wouldn't do that, she said, still in denial. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I know you love him, but this is real. He said it was for Tyler's education, but I feel like something suspicious is going on. He even got mad when I said I'd tell you. I don't know, honey. Maybe I need more proof, she said, hesitantly. Don't worry, Mom. I'll get you all the proof you need, I promised, feeling more determined than ever. Even if she wasn't ready to believe me just yet, I knew I had to stay alert and keep watching. It felt like Scott had put some kind of spell on my mom, clouding her judgment. But I was still determined to figure out what he and Tyler were up to. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I went to the family computer, hoping to find some clue about what Scott was doing. When I logged in, I noticed something odd. Scott had forgotten to log out of his email account. That was a huge mistake. As I started going through his emails, my heart began to race.
What I found shocked me.
Scott had been emailing a woman named Laura, and the messages weren't just friendly. They were flirty and very inappropriate. My stomach twisted. Was he having an affair? I quickly jotted down some notes on what I found. But the next email was even worse. It was about Scott's plan to divorce my mom and run away with Laura. They mentioned getting a lot of money soon from a business venture, but it sounded shady. Scott hadn't put anything obviously illegal in the emails, but he was reckless enough to leave this evidence right there. I knew I had to find out more. Maybe Tyler could tell me something if I got him to slip up. The next day, I approached Tyler, trying to act casual. Hey, Tyler. Hi, Emma. You seem cheerful today, he replied with a smile, and I almost felt a little bad for him. I wanted to ask you a few things, I said, turning serious. I've been thinking about what you and Scott said, and I might actually consider giving you the money. Really? That's great. I'll tell him, Tyler replied eagerly. Hold on, I interrupted, raising my hand. Before I give you this money, I need to know it's really for your college, right? Oh, yeah, definitely for my tuition, he stammered, looking a bit nervous. All right, but I need to know you're serious about this, I continued, watching him closely. Yes, of course. I'm very serious, Tyler insisted, but his eyes darted around. And what about Laura? Is she serious too? I asked, wanting to see his reaction. Laura? Who's Laura? He asked, genuinely confused. Oh, she's, a student advisor at the college, I said, watching his face carefully. Just then, I heard footsteps, and my heart sank. Scott had entered the room, and I could feel the tension rise. I don't appreciate you questioning my son, Scott said in a low, threatening tone. I wasn't interrogating him, I replied calmly. I was just asking how my money would be used. I answered defensively. Well, once someone gives money, it's not theirs anymore, so it's really none of your business. Is that how you talk to someone who's thinking of giving you money? I shot back, trying to keep my voice steady. You're not thinking about it. You're giving me that money. If you don't, I'll kick you out, Scott threatened, leaving me stunned. Dad, this wasn't part of the deal, Tyler said, looking shocked.
Quiet.
I'm the parent and I make the rules. If you don't hand over that inheritance money, you can leave, Scott insisted. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had caught them in their web of lies, and little did Scott know, I'd been recording the entire conversation. I shot him an angry look and walked out, locking myself in my room, my heart racing. I finally had proof that Scott was trying to manipulate me and take my inheritance. I knew I wouldn't let him get away with it. Determined, I started gathering every piece of evidence I could find against Scott. It felt like I was a detective on a TV show, putting all the clues together. I collected voice recordings, screenshots of his messages with Laura, and every detail I could think of. I was preparing for the storm ahead. After pulling everything together, I called my mom. Hello, Mom. Hey, love. How are you? She replied, sounding cheerful. Mom, are you sitting down? I asked, feeling the weight of what I was about to share. What's wrong? I have some really bad news, and you're not going to like it. I took a deep breath and began to tell her everything I'd uncovered about Scott and Tyler. At first, she kept denying it, unable to believe what I was saying. He wouldn't do that, she insisted, shaking her head. Finally, I played the recording I'd made. As she listened, I saw her expression change, her eyes wide with shock. Why would he say those things to you? Why would he do that to me? She asked, hurt and confused. Because he's not who you thought he was, Mom. I'm sorry, but you married someone who doesn't care about us. This is terrible. I can't believe I left you alone with those two. Absolutely not. I'm coming home right now. Have you locked your doors? I asked, my heart pounding. Are you ready, Mom? Yes, I am, she replied. I'm going to make sure that man regrets ever messing with us. He won't even want to show his face in public when I'm done with him. That's the spirit, Mom. Hurry home so we can make a plan. She arrived a few hours later, rushing straight to my room. We hugged tightly, tears streaming down our faces. We cried together, letting out the weight of everything we'd been holding in. I could see this news was hard for her, but seeing her angry and ready to act gave me hope. We talked for hours, going over plans, our fears, and what we hoped to do. By the end of the night, we had a solid plan. Scott wouldn't know what hit him. Over the next few days, Scott seemed confused about why my mom had returned early and was ignoring him. He acted overly cheerful, trying to keep up a fake innocence. But my mom saw right through him. She decided to take action, especially after seeing the shady messages about his so-called business. She hired a private investigator, feeling sure that Scott wasn't planning anything legal with that money. She was furious, How could a husband and father be so cruel and sneaky? When the investigator shared his findings, my mom was stunned. I'm speechless. What did they find? I asked, eager to know. It turns out he's planning to use a laundromat to launder money, she said, shocked. It's an old trick. Wow, that's not all, is it? I pressed, feeling more curious. No, it's not, she continued, her voice filled with anger. This woman, Laura, the one he's cheating on me with, has a criminal record for drug-related activities. She's been arrested several times for trying to sell illegal substances. It wouldn't be surprising if their business involves drugs, too. That's unbelievable. I would have never expected this. It's like I'm finally seeing who he really is, I said. When are we going to confront him, Mom? I asked, feeling adrenaline rush through me. Right now. Follow my lead, she said, her eyes fierce. Wait, let me grab my camera, I said, determined to record everything. We made our way to the living room, where we found Scott and Tyler huddled together, discussing their shady plans. I felt a rush of anticipation as we prepared to confront them. We'll use this as a cover for our business, Scott was saying quietly. Just act like you don't know anything and serve the customers. Hey, everyone. We're just going over Tyler's college application, he said, noticing us and trying to cover. My mom stepped into the room confidently. Cut the act, Scott. We know everything. What do you mean? Scott's fake innocence started to fade. Your little game is over. Smile for the camera, my mom added, holding up her phone to record. Get that out of my face, you spoiled brat. Scott snapped, his anger rising. Scott, we know it all, I said firmly. Do you have any idea how many years you'd get in jail for what you're planning? I don't know what you're talking about, he replied, trying to act clueless. Well, maybe we should call Laura and see what she has to say, my mom suggested, smiling slyly. You two think you're so smart? Laura is just a friend, Scott said, panic in his voice. Oh, really? The photos say otherwise, I shot back. Who even uses emails to cheat? It's so obvious. How dare you go through my things? Scott shouted, clearly angry. No, Scott, how dare you threaten my daughter for money that isn't yours? How dare you threaten to kick her out of my house, involve your son in this mess, and plan to use her money for illegal activities? My mom fired back, her voice shaking with rage. Scott stood there, speechless, his confidence fading. Nothing to say now, huh? I challenged, feeling stronger than ever. We know everything, and we're going to make sure you pay for it. Get that camera out of my face, Scott shouted, but my mom didn't budge. Suddenly, he lunged at me, anger blazing in his eyes. My heart raced as I stepped back, trying to keep my distance. So now you're attacking my daughter? You really are begging for jail time, my mom yelled, her voice steady but furious. You don't know anything, Scott spat, but his tone had turned desperate. Tell that to the police, who should be here any second, I replied, feeling a surge of defiance. Police? Scott's face shifted from anger to fear. Yes, the police, my mom said. Your behavior today just convinced me to call them. Right then, we heard police sirens approaching our neighborhood. I had never seen Scott look so scared before. He'd always acted like he was smarter than everyone, but when he heard those sirens, his face went pale. Please, Angela, you don't have to do this. I can explain everything, he begged, sounding desperate. Save it for the judge. You cockroach, my mom replied coldly. You disgust me. And Tyler, don't think you're getting off easy either. Both of you are about to get what you deserve for treating my daughter and me this way. As the police cars pulled up outside, I felt a huge wave of relief. Justice was finally here. Scott and Tyler's world was falling apart, and I could hardly believe it was happening. When the officers stepped onto our porch, I felt a mix of fear and triumph. My mom and I shared a look, knowing we had each other's backs. Let's end this once and for all, I whispered to her, bracing myself for what was coming. I might have been young, but I understood enough to know that Scott needed to pay for what he'd done. One of Scott's friends tried to defend him, saying, Michelle, don't you think this is a bit much? Actually, it's not enough, my mom shot back, standing strong. We'd even set up a live stream, and as we started it, my heart raced. "How's it going?" I asked, nervous but excited. "We've got over 4,200 people watching," she said with a grin. "This is going to be big." With everyone watching, my mom declared, and in case it wasn't clear, I want a divorce. The chat exploded with comments and reactions as the shocking news spread. Over 4,200 people saw our family drama unfold live. Soon, it hit local newspapers and tabloids, turning it into a public spectacle. It felt surreal, standing in the middle of this chaos with my ex-stepfather and his son, but there was a deep satisfaction in watching Scott's downfall. He lost his job, friends, and even family members who refused to speak to him anymore. As the legal process began, he faced serious charges for all his schemes. If the judge found him guilty, he could spend up to 21 years in prison. It was hard to believe it was really happening, that Scott would finally pay for everything he'd done. The police also found Laura, who'd been hiding while all of this was blowing up. She was facing the same charges, and I felt relieved knowing she wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else. Life for my mom and me was finally looking brighter. All that we'd been through brought us closer together. On weekends, we'd relax on the patio, drinks in hand, laughing at how foolish and cruel Scott had been. It felt freeing to share these moments, our bond stronger than ever. "Good riddance," I said with a smile, raising my glass. "Good riddance indeed," my mom echoed, her eyes shining with strength. We had overcome so much, and I knew we were ready for whatever came next.
"Would you like more champagne, Ma?" Patrick asked, refilling my glass before I could answer. I smiled nervously, glancing at my son and his fiancée. We were celebrating their engagement with a small family dinner, but I felt uneasy. "To your happiness," Olivia said, clinking her glass with mine. I nodded and took a big sip. "There's something we want to talk to you about tonight," Patrick said, giving Olivia a sly look. "We're planning a huge engagement party next month. Only the best for our perfect union." I laughed nervously. "How wonderful for you both, but those parties can get quite expensive, can't they?" "Oh, we're not paying a thing," Olivia said, waving her hand. "That's going to be your gift to us." I nearly choked on my champagne. "I'm sorry." "As Patrick's mother, it's your duty to pay," Olivia continued. "We expect you to contribute at least $31,000. Consider it an investment in your son's future." $31,000 for a party, I said, shocked. "Do you have any idea how unreasonable that is?" "Don't be ridiculous, Mom," Patrick interrupted. "You make good money, and you have all the inheritance money from Dad that you've been saving." My husband's recent death from cancer was still fresh in my mind. "That money is for my retirement," I said, "and to pay these expenses without even consulting me first." Olivia rolled her eyes. "Still going on about being consulted? Get over yourself. You're the mother of the groom. This is what's expected. Pay up and be grateful we're letting you contribute at all. You should feel honored we're even inviting you. Write the damn check so we can start planning," Patrick sneered. I sat there, stunned by their arrogance and disregard. "Honey, be reasonable. You can have a lovely party without extravagant costs. Let's scale things back a bit." Patrick slammed his fist on the table, rattling the glasses. "I knew you would pull this cheap crap," he shouted. "Some mother you are. Can't even support your only son." Hot tears sprang to my eyes as I took in their angry faces. I had spoiled my son over the years, but I never thought he could treat me so badly. I stood up quickly, disgusted by the two vipers in my home. "I think you should leave now," I said quietly. Olivia jumped up and grabbed my shoulders with her sharp red nails. "Don't even think about rejecting your duty," she growled, her perfumed breath in my face. "You either pay up or you can forget about having a relationship with Patrick and any future grandchildren." I shook her off forcefully. "Get out of my house this instant," I yelled. They left without another word, but I saw them exchange a triumphant smirk. My heart sank, realizing that the engagement celebration I had hoped for would only bring greed, manipulation, and pain. The next evening, tired from a long day at work, but determined to resolve the issue, I prepared a simple pasta dinner. I hoped to have an open talk with Patrick. I heard the front door slam and braced myself as loud footsteps echoed down the hall. "Something smells good," Patrick said, breezing into the kitchen and heading straight for the wine cabinet. My hopes lifted for a moment, then quickly faded as Olivia followed him, reeking of heavy perfume. So much for a private chat with my son. To what do I owe the pleasure? I asked Riley, draining the pasta. "You're going to love what we have planned," Olivia said, ignoring my tone as she rummaged through her designer handbag. "We met with the wedding coordinator today, and everything is set. All we need is one little thing from you." She pulled out a folder stuffed with brochures and invoices. "Just sign on the dotted line for the $60,000 wedding package." I froze, a chill running down my spine. $60,000 for a one-day celebration. That's outrageous. "It's our special day," Patrick whined. "Don't I deserve the very best?" I tried to reason with him. "Son, let's scale back and have an intimate, meaningful ceremony instead of this circus." Olivia slammed the folder down. "You incompetent hag. Who said this was open for discussion?" she screeched. "You will pay every penny to give your only son his dream wedding." Rage boiled inside me. Through gritted teeth, I replied, "You entitled, nasty piece of—" "Mom, stop." We all turned in surprise to see my daughter, Joyce, standing firmly in the doorway. I had been so focused on the argument, I hadn't even heard her come in. "Stay out of this, dyke," Olivia snarled at my tattooed, alternative graphic novelist daughter. "This doesn't concern you." "The hell it doesn't," Joyce retorted. "You don't talk that way to my mother." She crossed the room to stand protectively beside me. I might have been annoyed by her stepping in, always trying to be the strong, independent matriarch. But at that moment, her support was a lifeline, and I welcomed it. Patrick threw his hands up dramatically. "I asked for one little wedding, and my whole family turns against me." He pointed accusingly at his sister. "This is all your fault, filling Mom's head with nonsense. She owes me this money and her loyalty." Joyce folded her arms. "Mom owes you nothing but basic respect, which you clearly don't show her. She raised you alone after Dad died, working tirelessly to give you everything, and this is how you repay her. With shameless exploitation." My son had no response other than childish whimpers. Joyce turned to me, her tattooed hand gripping mine firmly. "Stay strong, Mom. Set boundaries and demand the respect you deserve. I've got your back." The knot in my chest loosened with immense relief. My daughter's unwavering support washed away my self-doubts. I would not bow down to these greedy, manipulative people for another minute. I stood tall, feeling empowered. "You both have two choices," I said to Patrick and Olivia in a loud, clear voice. "Treat me and my daughter with basic decency, or get the hell out of our lives." Olivia opened her mouth, probably to say something nasty, but she caught Joyce's fierce glare and thought better of it. She dragged a whimpering Patrick out by his ear instead. I squeezed Joyce's hand, my eyes filled with grateful tears. "How did I get so lucky to have a daughter like you?" She smiled crookedly. "Just a chip off the old block. Now, let's dish up that pasta and plan our next move. These jerks don't know who they're messing with." The next week crawled by with intense uncertainty. My phone buzzed constantly with demanding texts and voicemails from Patrick, raging when I didn't call him back immediately. I started screening my calls, not having the energy to deal with his abusive tirades. On Saturday afternoon, I decided to treat myself to a manicure to lift my spirits. As I sat relaxing while the technician groomed my nails, my phone buzzed again. Normally, I would ignore it, but glancing down, I saw it was a call from Patrick's number. Curiosity got the best of me. "Hi, honey," I answered cautiously. "It's your witch of a mother," came Olivia's grating voice instead. My blood instantly started boiling. I was about to hang up when I heard Patrick's sneering tones in the background. Is the old bag actually taking your call? She's been dodging mine all week. There was a rustling sound, followed by Patrick's voice coming clearly through the phone speaker. Mom, what the hell? I've been calling nonstop. Have you given any more thought to funding the wedding? The coordinator is breathing down my neck. I was about to say no firmly, but Olivia's shrill voice cut me off. Oh, let it go already. She's clearly a lost cause. There was a slap sound, as if she hit his arm. Your mother is a dried-up, selfish prune. Once we're married, we'll change all the account passwords so she can never access our money. My eyes widened in shock. Our money? There was more rustling than Olivia's grating voice continued. Why are we even still inviting her to the wedding? She'll just show up wearing some raggedy outfit from the clearance rack at TJ Maxx. Their loud laughter made my blood boil, but worse was Patrick's reply. Right? And you know she's going to be all whiny about contributing to our future, as if that small life insurance payout could compare to what I make in a month. The hair on my neck stood up in anger. That small payout was nearly $500,000 that I had invested for retirement, not blown on sports cars and designer clothes like my son. Olivia scoffed loudly. Oh please, we both know it was your daddy's money that got you into that firm. Your mother couldn't manage an allowance without a man's help. Hell yes to that, Patrick cackled. And we put that inheritance money to way better use, like annual trips to Messina, first class all the way. Their laughter was too much. I stamped the red phone icon so hard I nearly cracked the screen. Those money-grubbing snakes. I had suspected their motives, but hearing their vile words firsthand rocked me to the core. My hands shook with rage and indignation. I waved away the technician's concerned glances, threw a wad of cash on the counter, and rushed out the door. I drove home in record time, burning with the need to unload to Joyce. Thankfully, she was already there, her motorcycle parked haphazardly on the driveway. I burst through the front door, and she jumped up from the couch, startled by my frazzled state. The story came pouring out in an angry torrent. Joyce's green eyes blazed. Those conniving, she yelled. I knew it all along. It was never about family or celebration. They just see you as a cash machine. I feel so betrayed and used, I said bitterly, choking back tears of frustration. My only son, how could he? Joyce gripped my shoulders, her piercing gaze meeting mine. Mom, listen to me. We need to gather evidence and expose these cockroaches for who they really are. She get her fist into her palm decisively. Contact the wedding coordinator, get documentation of everything, and demand they arrange things without your consent. I'll dig into Olivia's background too. I bet her family is rich despite those fake tears. We're going to shut this whole circus down. Hope and courage surged in me. My wonderful daughter was right. It was time to take control and fight back. I pulled her in for a fierce hug, more grateful than ever for her integrity and strength. Let's go nail their greedy asses to the wall. Over the next 3 weeks, Joyce and I gathered tons of evidence exposing Patrick and Olivia's deceit. Joyce discovered that Olivia came from a very wealthy family. Her father owns a huge real estate investment firm, and he could easily pay for the extravagant wedding. Meanwhile, I got financial records from the wedding coordinator showing the ridiculous expenses Patrick and Olivia were trying to stick me with $75,000 and counting. We have everything we need to confront these swindlers, Joyce declared, spreading paperwork across the dining table. Let's invite them over to review wedding plans and then drop the hammer on them. Her green eyes gleamed with determination. I set the trap, inviting them over under the pretense of discussing wedding details and financing. They took the bait instantly. Right on time, the doorbell rang urgently. Before I could even answer, Patrick and Olivia barged in, reeking of arrogance and no. 6. Where's my check? Patrick demanded right away. Subtlety had never been his strong suit. Olivia elbowed him sharply and put on a syrupy smile. Yes, do tell us the good news, she said sweetly. We have so many decisions to finalize for our big day. I gestured for them to take a seat. Under the table, Joyce silently slid me a thick manila envelope containing the damning evidence. My heart pounded, but my resolve hardened my nerves. I folded my hands tightly on the table. Before we discuss any further arrangements, I have a few concerns to address. I removed the paperwork from the envelope and spread it out in front of me. According to the wedding coordinator, current expenses total $95,000. Care to explain? Olivia scoffed loudly. It's the wedding of the century. What do you expect? I expect honest communication of finances and shared responsibility, I replied evenly. For example, why don't Olivia's wealthy parents contribute their fair share? After all, I pulled out a copy of her dad's business profile showing a net worth in the tens of millions. They could easily afford this. Olivia turned pale, and Patrick sputtered angrily. Leave Olivia's family out of this. My wedding, my financial support. He pointed a finger at me. And you're my mother, so cut the check. Having expected this denial, I was ready. I calmly slid over the pile of invoices and contracts. These documents prove otherwise. They have my forged signature authorizing non-refundable down payments totaling $250,000 so far. Care to explain that? Olivia gasped dramatically. Are you accusing us of fraud? From beside me, Joyce suddenly slammed down her fist. Damn straight she is. Joyce's unexpected outburst stunned them into silence. She then scattered the contents of the manila envelope across the table. Bank statements, screenshots, phone records, irrefutable evidence of their lies and manipulation. It's all here in black and white, Joyce spat with disgust. You snakes have been exploiting my mother's love and trust this whole time, never caring about family bonds, just what you can swindle out of her. You were spying on us? Patrick spluttered in outrage. Gathering evidence against your fraud, I corrected. Now that everything is laid bare, you will cancel this sham wedding immediately. Olivia shot up from her chair, nostrils flaring. How dare you, she shrieked. I will be marrying Patrick with or without your money. She turned to my son with a pout. Back me up here. But Patrick just sat there, pale and trembling, the magnitude of the revelations leaving him speechless. Olivia rolled her eyes in disgust. You spineless mama's boy. Forget it. She snatched her designer handbag and stormed out, pausing in the doorway to deliver one final venomous glare. You'll regret this, she hissed at me. We won't forget. She flounced away in a cloud of channel. I stared evenly at my shaken son. Nor will we, I said quietly. Now leave. He scrambled up hurriedly, but just before exiting he mumbled a soft but clear threat. I'll make you pay for this. The day I had been dreading arrived. Patrick and Olivia's lavish wedding. I had hoped our confrontation would end it, but these stubborn snakes pursued their farce of a wedding anyway, blowing through even more of the retirement money I had entrusted to Patrick's accounts. I sat there, unwillingly part of their twisted wedding circus. All around me, drunk guests gambled under flashy flower arrangements that cost more than my first car. The centerpiece was an 8-tier fondant cake covered in handcrafted sugar flowers, with Patrick and Olivia's smug faces in a massive golden frame above it. My daughter Joyce lurched next to me, wearing ripped jeans and combat boots, her green pixie cut clashing with the pastel bridesmaid dresses. We watched the over-the-top spectacle, barely hiding our disgust. Suddenly, the music switched to a loud wedding march. The crowd quieted as Patrick took his place under the tacky archway. My heart clenched. He looked so much like his father, tall and handsome in his tuxedo, beaming with charm. Not a trace of the greedy boy I had confronted weeks ago. He radiated pride as his bride floated down the aisle in a designer gown, likely charged to my credit card. Old memories and grief welled up. I had walked that same path over 35 years ago, full of dreams of a lifelong partnership and family, dreams that had soared quickly. My faith in love and devotion had died with my husband, and now our son showed the same callous disregard. As the ceremony droned on, anger simmered within me. I couldn't bless this loveless union with my presence any longer. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping loudly across the floor. All eyes turned to me. Joyce grabbed my hand supportively. "I apologize, but I cannot stay silent about this travesty," I said, my voice clear. Murmurs rippled through the stunned guests. Patrick flushed, shrinking under my bold stare. Before he could respond, Olivia shoved past him, her eyes full of fury. "How dare you interrupt my perfect day?" she spat, advancing toward me with outstretched, manicured claws. I stepped back, recoiling from her vicious energy. Joyce immediately confronted the enraged bride. "Back off," she warned, shielding me protectively. A hush fell over the room. No one moved to intervene. Patrick hung his head, refusing to meet my gaze, offering no objection to his new wife's vitriol. My heart cracked, all illusions shattered. I no longer had a son this greedy, spineless stranger would never again have my devotion or resources. I stepped around Joyce to address the crowd. "Let all bear witness to this hollow, pretentious sham of matrimony," I declared boldly. "I refuse to enable these snakes any further and cut all ties. The farce ends now." I turned sharply towards the exit, my skirt swishing dramatically as I passed my stunned son. I paused long enough to repeat the often hurled threat, "You'll regret this." Then I strode purposefully away without a backward glance, Joyce right beside me, our shoes clacking a steady beat as we walked out of that den of iniquity. We emerged into watery sunlight, the doors cutting off Olivia's frenzied shrieks behind us. I took my first free breath in ages, relief washing over me as we climbed into Joyce's waiting car. I patted my daughter's tattooed hand affectionately. "Thank you for standing by me in there." She grinned crookedly. "Are you kidding? I've waited years for a chance to tell Olivia off." As we drove away from the lavish lies behind us, tears pricked my eyes, but for once they were not from grief or regret. Looking at my beautiful, loyal daughter smiling back at me, I knew I would never stand alone again. In the months following the cursed wedding, I changed phone numbers, moved, and transferred my remaining assets, cutting off all contact with Patrick and his venomous bride. I heard through the grapevine that they had gone through with their honeymoon in Messina, no doubt funded by what was left of my retirement savings. Let them gorge themselves on luxury, I thought bitterly. It was only a matter of time before reality caught up. Sure enough, merely a year later, Patrick came begging. I returned home one evening to find him hunched on my doorstep, unshaven and reeking of stale cigarettes. The shock was so great that I froze momentarily, packages slipping from my hands. Patrick's bloodshot eyes showed a flash of embarrassment as he made a half-hearted attempt to help gather my things before mumbling, "Hey Ma, can we talk?" I brushed past him silently to unlock my front door, gesturing him stiffly inside. He hovered awkwardly as I put away groceries with deliberate slowness, bracing myself before finally addressing him. "What do you want?" I asked bluntly. Patrick cleared his throat. "I need your help. Just temporarily," he added quickly, as if that lessened the audacity. "I'm between jobs right now, and Olivia is pretty pissed that I can't cover her spending." "Absolutely not." My sharp refusal halted his rambling excuses. I crossed my arms, rage and satisfaction warring within me. "You made this bed. Lie in it?" Patrick gaped, unaccustomed to blunt denial from his doting mother. "Come on, Ma. I'm desperate here. Can't you just spot me a few grand?" He took a pleading step forward. "I'll pay you back, I swear." I stood unmoving as granite before my prodigal son. "You had no intention of paying me back the first time you ransacked my accounts." I reminded him coldly, "Why should I trust your empty promises now?" He flushed and said, "Look, I was wrong before, okay? But I'm still your son." I cut him off with a swift gesture. "You lost that privilege long ago. I have no son." I pointed a finger at his shocked face. "Now you reap what you've sown. Get out." He opened and closed his mouth, but couldn't argue against my firm disgust. Shoulders slumped, Patrick scooped out the door and out of my life once more. It was about time he faced harsh reality. I quickly locked the door before the vindication I felt could turn into pity or regret. There could be no forgiveness for someone who repeatedly betrayed me. Patrick's wretched appearance showed that karma had caught up with him. The next thing I heard, his fancy tech startup had crashed after less than a year. My business connections had blacklisted him, and no investor would touch his dubious proposals. Meanwhile, Olivia had run back to her daddy's wallet after too many fights over unpaid bills. Last I heard, she was divorcing my son and living with some old sugar daddy in Royal Palace. Joyce and I toasted to their misery with cocktails that night, laughing at rumors of Patrick working fast food jobs under a fake name. I felt no guilt for his suffering. Karma's a bitch, Joyce grinned, raising her martini glass. Here's to many more years of her gnawing on those greedy bastards. No truer words have been spoken, I agreed, clinking my glass to hers. Over the next year and a half, Joyce's career took off. More high-profile clients wanted her unique tattoo style and artistic graphic novels. She even secured an agent and a publishing deal for her provocative memoir, a brutal tell all about our family saga that was generating buzz before it even hit the shelves. Behind closed doors, Joyce relied on my sharp business instincts to manage her growing finances. I used my decades of investment experience to establish trademarks, negotiate publishing rights, and maximize profits. I swelled with pride watching my daughter's passions flourish under my careful guidance. Soon Joyce was regularly featured in edgy fashion magazines and sought-after graphic anthologies. She bought a sleek downtown loft as her business base, proudly showcasing the extravagant views she had earned through her talents. To celebrate Joyce's rapid rise, we toasted to her success, knowing that we had triumphed over the past. I decided to host a small gathering of key supporters and collaborators at her stylish new place. The catered event would mark her official arrival as an artistic visionary and independent woman of means. Joyce greeted guests with uncharacteristic nervous energy as I directed caterers to arrange free-flowing champagne and delicate canapés. "You have nothing to worry about," I reassured my daughter as I straightened her smart blazer. "Just be your normal captivating self. These people already adore you." Soon, the loft overflowed with Joyce's inner circle, daring writers, leading publishers, edgy photographers, and even some A-list celebrities from her clientele came to toast their favorite tattoo artist. Pride swelled in my chest as I heard powerful figures celebrating my talented daughter. This was the kind of launch party Patrick could only dream about. 3 years ago, our family name was tarnished by greed and failure, but now, through Joyce's virtues, respect had not only been restored but elevated to elite status. Late into the evening, I stepped onto the balcony with Joyce, gazing over the vibrant city lights. She squeezed my hand gently. "None of this would be possible without you, Mom. You believed in me when no one else did, invested in me, fought for me. I'll owe you forever." I wrapped one arm around her shoulders, champagne flute in the other hand. "Nonsense, my brave darling. Your success comes from your vision and talents. I just helped with the business side so you could create freely." Joyce grinned. "I inherited your business savvy along with Dad's creative spirit." She clinked her glass to mine. "To the dynamic duo, may we always prevail over vipers and thieves." I laughed, my heart swelling with joy. My daughter and I had overcome greed and betrayal to now bask in self-made success. As the lively celebration continued behind us, I silently offered a final toast to her beloved father. We had created a fine legacy, built from integrity, courage, and hard work, not entitlement or manipulation. That legacy now stood as a testament for all the Patricks of the world to envy for years to come. Over the next 3 years, Joyce's star continued to rise brilliantly. Meanwhile, I heard through mutual contacts that Patrick was struggling with obscurity and mounting debt. His lavish lifestyle lasted a while on credit before it all came crashing down. The rare times his name came up, it was tied to seedy gossip and tabloid scandals, from Olivia's very public affair to Patrick getting fired from a car dealership for not making payments. Karma seemed intent on grinding my prodigal son into the dirt. I ignored the lurid headlines with quiet satisfaction, confident I would never see him again. By now, I had retired from corporate leadership to focus on passion projects, indulging in artistic hobbies, volunteering with disadvantaged youth, and planning leisurely global adventures. I decided it was also time to downsize to a lower-maintenance home. After a long search, I found my perfect oasis, a private bungalow in a picturesque coastal senior community. Mature trees and vibrant gardens welcomed me each morning as I went on scenic nature walks with dear widowed friends. The idyllic setting and social kinship brought me a sense of peace I hadn't realized was missing. Meanwhile, Joyce had also found her soulmate, a brilliant software developer named Alice who adored her vibrant spirit. I instantly sensed true partnership potential upon meeting Alice, and my instincts proved correct. Just months after moving in together, Joyce excitedly announced their engagement. I whooped with joy when she flashed the unique geometric ring Alice had custom designed. "My darling girl," I exclaimed through happy tears, "I'm thrilled you found someone deserving of your tremendous heart." The private garden wedding ceremony Joyce described echoed my own intimate vision from 3 decades prior. No showy fanfare, just profound lifelong commitment witnessed by cherished friends and family. I clasped Joyce's hand, overcome with emotion at how perfectly she was manifesting the dreams her father and I once had. Later, during wedding planning over tea and biscuits, Joyce hesitated before bringing up the subject I knew she would. "Mom, about inviting Patrick." I waved a hand briskly. "Let's not sully your special day by entertaining that notion." Joyce bit her lip. "I just can't help but pity him, you know. He's clearly a miserable screw-up, but he's still family, even if he doesn't deserve it. I wonder if including him would be the right thing." She trailed off uncertainly. Recognizing my daughter's enduring compassion, even for those who least deserved it, I patted her hand reassuringly. "You needn't ever compromise your kind principles. If showing some small mercy to Patrick eases your mind, do it. I can tolerate his presence just this once." Joyce exhaled in relief and squeezed my hand gratefully. "You're the best, Mom. I knew you'd understand." The sentimental moment was interrupted by my ringing phone. I was stunned to see Patrick's name flash across the screen. Months had passed since his last desperate, drunken voicemail pleading for money. With a grim face, I silenced the call. "Speak of the devil," I remarked. Joyce shook her head. "He never stops trying to worm his way back in. But don't worry, Mom. After the wedding, you'll never have to deal with his garbage again." I smiled gently at my daughter's protective tone. She was right. The time had long passed for me to entertain Patrick's self-pitying attempts. I now had all I needed in my tranquil life, surrounded by those who nurtured my soul. No distractions from a toxic past could ever breach that blessing. I patted Joyce's hand resolutely. "Onwards and upwards, my dear. Now, tell me more about the lovely flower arrangements you envisioned."
The buzzing of my phone woke me up at 1:30 a.m. It wasn't the usual buzz of a text or call, but a different pattern, something for a security alert. Half asleep, I almost ignored it, but something made me take a closer look. The notification was from an app one didn't remember installing. It said, "Secure Track Alert. Location data accessed." My name is Brenda, and that notification was the start of everything falling apart in my otherwise normal life. I sat up in bed, trying not to wake James. He was asleep beside me, his back turned like always lately. The blue light from my phone cast strange shadows on the walls as I looked into the mysterious app. It wasn't on my home screen, but hidden deep in my phone settings. Somehow, it had been running in the background for who knows how long. "What the hell?" I whispered, my hands trembling as I explored the app. A map popped up, showing everywhere I'd been in the past week, My daily drive to work at the high school, my Friday coffee with Barbara, even my secret visit to a jewelry store to buy James an anniversary gift. Suddenly, the bedroom felt hot and claustrophobic. I slipped out of bed and walked quietly to the kitchen, passing my daughter Samantha's room. She was asleep, completely unaware that my world was starting to fall apart. In the harsh kitchen light, I dug deeper into the app. It wasn't just tracking my location. It had my text messages, call logs, and even my internet history. Each discovery felt like another blow. Who could do this?
And why?
My hands shook as I poured myself a glass of water. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator, making everything feel even more unreal. My phone buzzed again. Another alert. Secure track alert. Audio recording in progress. My stomach dropped. Audio recording? I frantically searched the app until I found a folder labeled Recordings. The newest one was from 6 days ago. It played back my conversation with Barbara at the coffee shop. "I don't know, Barbara," my own voice said, distant and tinny. "James has been different lately, working late, always on his phone." I quickly stopped the playback, feeling sick. Someone had been listening to my private conversations. Someone had been following my every move. The app needed physical access to be installed, which made it even worse. Suddenly, I heard footsteps upstairs and I froze. They were heading toward our bedroom. It was just James, probably going to the bathroom like he usually did at night. But for the first time in 16 years of marriage, the sound of his familiar footsteps made my skin crawl. I quickly closed the app and deleted the alerts. My instincts as a teacher kicked in. Don't show your hand too early. Gather evidence. Make a plan. My students would never guess that their Shakespeare-quoting English teacher could think like this. Back in bed, I lay awake, listening to James's steady breathing. My mind was spinning. The man sleeping beside me, the father of my child, my partner of 16 years. What was he hiding? Why would he need to track me? Or was this part of something bigger? One thing was clear. I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not until I knew what I was dealing with. Tomorrow, I'd start digging. Tomorrow, I'd figure out what kind of secrets had been wrapped around my life. As I finally started to drift off to sleep, my phone buzzed one more time. I almost missed it in my exhaustion. A text from an unknown number. It read, "Be careful what you look for, Brenda. Some truths are better left buried." Morning came too fast. I hadn't slept much after finding the spyware, but I forced myself through the usual routine. The smell of coffee and toast filled the kitchen as I packed Samantha's lunch, trying to keep my hands steady. James came downstairs in his crisp blue suit, the one he always wore for big client meetings. He barely glanced at me as he poured coffee into his travel mug. "Big meeting today?" I asked casually, watching his face. "Yeah," he said, not looking at me. "Probably won't be home for dinner." He stirred his coffee slowly, almost robotically. "The Morrison accounts?" I asked, remembering the excuse he'd used 3 times in the last 4 weeks. "Yeah, it needs extra attention."
He didn't look me in the eyes.
I wanted to scream at him, to demand answers about the app. But instead, I just nodded and went back to making Samantha's sandwich. "Mom, have you seen my USB drive?" Samantha ran into the kitchen, her dark hair still wet from the shower. "The blue one with all my coding projects?" "Check the living room," I said, my voice steady, even though my whole world felt anything but. "I said you were working there last night." Samantha paused, looking back and forth between James and me. She'd always been sharp, too smart for her own good sometimes. Her eyes narrowed as she noticed the space between us, the way we didn't touch. James moved past me to grab his briefcase. "Dad, you promised to help me with my computer science project this weekend," she said suddenly. "The one about digital privacy and security." I almost dropped the knife I was holding. James's shoulders stiffened. "Sorry, sweetheart," he said, his voice tight. "Something came up at work. Maybe next weekend." Samantha's face fell, but I saw something else in her expression. Suspicion, maybe. "Right. Work again," she muttered. James quickly kissed her forehead and headed for the door. "Love you both," he called out, but it sounded flat, like he was reading lines from a script. After he left, Samantha turned to me. Mom, what's going on? What do you mean? I said, keeping busy with the dishes. Dad's been acting weird lately. And you, she hesitated. You look like you haven't slept. Plus, you're washing the same plate for the third time. I froze, then set the plate down, forcing a smile. Just work stress, honey. You know how it is with final season. Mom, I'm 15, not 5, Samantha said, crossing her arms. I know something's wrong. I heard you up last night. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed. Another secure track alert. I grabbed it quickly, making sure Samantha didn't see. But I caught a glimpse of the message. Audio recording saved. Kitchen, 6:45 a.m. I need to get to school early, I said, grabbing my purse. Teacher's meeting. Will you be okay taking the bus? Samantha's face hardened.
Sure.
Whatever. The drive to school was a blur. Once I parked, I pulled out my phone and found Barbara's number. We'd been friends since college and she worked in IT security. If anyone could help me figure this out, it was her. But before I could call, a new text appeared from the unknown number. Careful who you trust, Brenda. Barbara might not be the friend you think she is. My stomach dropped. How did they know I was about to call Barbara? Unless, I looked around the parking lot, suddenly feeling exposed. The spyware must have access to my phone's camera too. A knock on my window made me jump. It was Thomas from the English department, looking concerned. You okay, Brenda? The meeting's about to start. Yeah, coming, I said, grabbing my things. My mind was spinning. I couldn't trust my phone. I couldn't trust my husband. Maybe I couldn't even trust Barbara. And worst of all, I was starting to feel cracks in my bond with Samantha, the one person I thought I could count on. I was trying to protect Samantha from all of this. As I walked into school, another text came through. Smart girl, your daughter. Maybe she should look into that computer science project more carefully. Lots of interesting things to learn about digital privacy these days. This wasn't just a threat anymore. They were dragging my daughter into it. And that was my breaking point. I found Robert Downey's office tucked between a laundromat and a Chinese takeout place. The private investigator's worn face matched his old leather chair as he looked over the screenshots of the spyware app one had taken. Secure Track Pro, he said, taking off his reading glasses. High-end stuff. Not something you'd get off the usual market. Can you trace it? I asked. He nodded slowly. Already did. It was bought 5 weeks ago, through a shell company. But here's the interesting part. He turned his computer screen toward me. The buyer used your home address for billing. My stomach sank. James? Robert kept clicking through files. That's not all. The shell company has been making regular payments to a rental property in Hoover's personal care. Nice place, not cheap. Too pricey for just one person and less. Someone else is helping with the rent. I finished, my voice bitter. Bingo. Robert pulled up a photo that made my world tilt. It showed James leaving the building with a woman I didn't recognize. She was younger than me, effortlessly beautiful in a way that made me feel every wrinkle on my face. His hand rested on the small of her back, a gesture that felt far too intimate. Carol Burnett, Robert said softly. She works at James's firm. Junior partner, fast-tracked for promotion. My phone buzzed again. Another secure track alert, but I ignored it, focusing on the dates below the photos. These are from the nights, he said, he was working late on the Morrison account. There's more, Robert said, hesitating. The spyware? It wasn't his idea. Based on the email trails I found, Carol pushed for it. She's been encouraging him to make a clean break. A clean break. My voice sounded far away. From you and Samantha. Robert slid a folder across his desk. These are copies of everything I've found, including, he tapped a document inside the folder. A consultation with a divorce lawyer. Last week. The fluorescent lights above felt too bright, and the smell of Chinese food drifting through the wall made me feel sick. Why the spyware then? If he's already planning to leave? Insurance, maybe. Or control. People do strange things when they're living double lives. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. The message read, having fun with Robert? Wonder what James would think about his wife meeting strange men in secret. I showed Robert the text. His face darkened. They're watching you, probably through your phone's camera. He grabbed a post-it and wrote something down. This is a burner phone number.
Use it to contact me from now on.
And Brenda, he looked me in the eye. Be careful. People who do this kind of surveillance aren't playing games. As I walked to my car, another text came through. TikTok, Brenda. How long before Samantha finds out her mom is sneaking around too? I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. They were trying to mess with me, make me doubt myself, make me feel guilty for uncovering their lies. My phone rang. It was James. Hey, he said, his voice calm and casual. Too casual. Just checking if you can pick up Samantha today. My meeting's running late. Meeting, I said flatly. I wondered if Carol was sitting next to him, maybe running her fingers through his hair like I used to. Actually, I heard myself say, I have a meeting too. With the Morrison account, there was a long pause. The Morrison account? His voice cracked slightly. Yeah, I said, starting my car. Funny thing about that account, James, they shut down 4 months ago. Before he could reply, I added, enjoy your meeting. Say hi to Carol for me. And hung up. My heart was pounding. Through the windshield, I saw my reflection, pale, scared, but there was something else. Determination. My phone lit up with James's name, but I declined the call. Then I opened the Secure Track app. If they wanted to watch me, fine. Let them see what happens when you push a teacher into a corner. It was time to pay Carol Burnett a visit. But I didn't make it to Carol's apartment that day. Instead, I found myself sitting in my classroom during lunch, staring at a stack of unsigned permission slips for the next day's field trip. That's when Samantha appeared in the doorway. You missed breakfast again, she said, dropping her backpack by my desk. And Dad didn't come home last night. I forced a smile. He texted. Late meeting.
Stop.
Samantha's voice cracked. Just stop lying to me. The fluorescent lights hummed softly as we stared at each other. Her face had changed over the past year, losing its childhood softness. There were sharper edges now, and her eyes, too sharp, too knowing, seemed to see everything. I found something on Dad's laptop, she said, pulling out her phone. Remember when he asked me to help organize his work files last weekend? My stomach turned. Samantha. There were emails. Lots of them. To someone named Carol. She placed her phone on my desk, screen up. He's planning to leave us, isn't he? Before I could answer, a student appeared at the door. Mrs. Thompson, Principal Paul needs to see you. He says it's urgent. I found James waiting with the principal. He had on his courtroom smile, the one he used when he was about to destroy someone's credibility on the witness stand. Brenda, Principal Paul began, looking uncomfortable. Serious allegations have been made about inappropriate contact with a private investigator during school hours. There are also concerns about your emotional stability and how it might affect your teaching. I felt the trap closing around me. James had beaten me to it, spinning the story his way. Of course, he was a lawyer. This was what he did best. I'm worried about you, honey, James said, his voice full of fake concern. The paranoid accusations, the secret meetings, this isn't like you. Let me help. Help. Like he helped by putting spyware on my phone? Like he helped by planning to leave us while pretending everything was fine? Mr. Thompson suggests taking a leave of absence, Paul added. To work through these issues. My phone buzzed. A secure track alert. The app was probably recording this conversation, proof of how they were trying to make me seem unstable, paranoid, and unfit, not just to teach, but to parent. I have documentation, I said quietly, keeping my voice steady. James's smile faltered for the first time. Including the spyware you and Carol installed on my phone, I continued. The shell company. The apartment in Hoover's personal care. I turned to Paul. And recordings of every conversation I've had in the past 5 weeks. That includes conversations with students and their parents. How do you think the school board would feel about such a massive privacy violation? Paul's face went pale. Privacy violation, he stammered. I'll email you all the evidence, I said, standing up. But right now, I need to talk to my daughter. She found her emails, James. The ones to Carol about leaving us. James's calm, controlled mask cracked. Samantha found.
Yeah.
So while you're busy trying to ruin my career to cover your tracks, our daughter is sitting in my classroom, trying to figure out why her dad is abandoning her. I walked out, leaving them speechless behind me. In the hallway, my phone buzzed again, not from Secure Track this time, but a text from Robert. Got something big. Carol isn't who she claims to be. Meet ASAP. Back in my classroom, Samantha was still there, working on her laptop. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. What are you doing? I asked. Fighting back, she said, not looking up. Did you know most spyware has weak spots? Backdoors that can be exploited. Dad should have done better research before buying it. I watched as her fingers flew across the keyboard, her face calm but focused. At that moment, she looked so much like me, not the scared, broken version of me from the past few weeks, but the strong version I used to be. I had to step up and be a mom again. Samantha finally looked up from her laptop. I found something else in the app's code. Something bad, really bad. I don't think this is just about Dad's affair anymore. My phone buzzed, but this time it wasn't from the unknown number. It was from Carol herself. We need to talk. Your husband isn't the only one being blackmailed. Meet me tonight. It's not just spyware, Samantha said, her laptop casting a soft blue glow on her face as we sat in Robert Downey's dim office. It's part of something bigger. Look at these network connections. Robert leaned closer, squinting at her screen. These IP addresses, they're routed through law firms across the state. Dad's firm isn't the only one involved, I said, thinking about Carol's text. How many, Samantha? 17 so far, she replied, her fingers moving quickly over the keyboard. They're all using the same spyware, all linked to a central server. And they're all handling high-profile divorce cases, Robert added, shaking his head. Surveillance footage, private conversations, location data. It's a gold mine for divorce settlements. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Carol. They're watching. Don't trust James. Meet me at Riverside Park. 55 minutes. It's a trap, Robert warned, reading over my shoulder. Probably, I said, grabbing my coat. But she's scared. You didn't hear her voice in the recording Samantha found. Wait, Samantha said, turning her laptop toward me. Look at this email thread. Carol tried to back out 5 weeks ago. The next day, someone sent her this. The email had an attachment, a photo of Carol leaving a building I recognized. It was the women's shelter where I volunteered. She was helping a young woman inside, both of them looking over their shoulders. Her sister, Robert said softly. She's been hiding from an abusive ex for 4 months. Carol's been helping her stay off the grid. The pieces clicked into place. They're using her sister to control her, I said. Mom. Samantha's voice trembled slightly. There's something else. Remember that college fund Dad started for me last month? My stomach tightened. What about it? The money, it's not mine. It's being funneled through shell companies. The same ones paying for the spyware. Robert's face hardened. He's helping them launder money. The room felt like it was spinning. James wasn't just having an affair. He wasn't just spying on me. He was involved in something far darker. Something that could destroy not only our marriage but his career, his freedom, everything. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a video. It showed Samantha walking home from school yesterday. The message underneath was chilling. Back off or she's next. They're bluffing, Robert started, but I was already on my feet, heading for the door. Mom, stop. Samantha called after me. We need a plan. I have one, I said, turning back to see her worried face. She looked so much older than 15. I'm ending this. Tonight. Not alone, you're not, Samantha said, grabbing her laptop. I can hack their network, Samantha said. Shut down the spyware remotely and give you some time. Absolutely not, I said. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than you meeting Carol alone? Samantha stood her ground, chin lifted stubbornly. They're already threatening me. At least let me fight back. Robert cleared his throat. The kid's right. You need backup. I've got a friend in the FBI cybercrime division. One call. No, I interrupted, thinking about Carol's sister and all the other people being blackmailed. Not yet. If we scare them off now, people could get hurt. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with first. My phone buzzed again, a photo of James walking into an unfamiliar building, followed by the message. TikTok. Your husband's about to make a deal that can't be undone. Choose wisely. I looked at Samantha, this brilliant, brave girl who refused to back down. Then at Robert, who had become more than just an investigator. He was an ally. Okay, I said finally.
Here's the plan.
Samantha, you and Robert work on hacking their network, but you stay here where it's safe. I'll meet Carol and find out what she knows. And then, Robert asked. I thought of the lies, the manipulation, and the threats against my daughter. And then, I said, we burn it all down. Every last bit of it. As I left the office, I heard Samantha's fingers flying across her keyboard. I smiled grimly. They thought they could threaten a mother's child? They were about to find out just how dangerous that could be. Riverside Park was empty when I arrived, except for Carol, sitting alone on a bench near the water. She looked different from the photos Robert had shown me, smaller, more fragile. They're watching, she said, her voice low, eyes scanning the area. But Samantha's program worked. We've got about 10 minutes before the spyware comes back online. I sat beside her, keeping some space between us. Tell me about my husband's deal. It's not just James, she said, her hands shaking as she handed me a USB drive. The firm's been running this scheme for years. They install spyware on their own clients' devices, dig up dirt on both sides in divorces, and use it to manipulate settlements. The money laundering? That's just extra. My phone buzzed, a text from Samantha. Mom, something's wrong. Dad's not at the office. The message cut off. A familiar voice came from behind me. I really wish you'd stayed out of this, Brenda. James stepped out of the shadows, flanked by 4 men in suits. They looked cold, professional, and dangerous. The thing is, James continued, walking closer, you were never supposed to find the spyware. That was Carol's mistake. He gave her a disappointed look. She got sloppy. Just like you got sloppy with the college fund. I stood in front of Carol, putting myself between her and James. Using our daughter's account to launder money? That's low. Even for you. It's called protecting our future, James said, his smile cold and empty. Everything I did was for us. The firm's offering me partner, Brenda, real power. All I had to do was show my loyalty. By spying on your own families? By proving I understand how the game works. He gestured to the 4 men standing beside him. We can handle this quietly. The firm is willing to be generous, a clean divorce, full custody of Samantha, and a nice settlement. All you have to do is walk away. My phone vibrated. A message from Robert. FBI on the way. Stall him. And if I don't walk away? I asked. James's face hardened. Then things get messy for everyone. He pulled out his phone, showing me a live feed of the women's shelter. Carol's sister was on the screen. And maybe that bright future Samantha has in computer science. James added, it'd be a shame if she got caught hacking corporate servers. You'd threaten your own daughters? The words felt bitter in my mouth.
I'm protecting her, he said.
Teaching her how the world really works. He stepped closer, his voice softening. Come on, Brenda. Take the deal. We can all walk away from this. Behind me, Carol let out a quiet, broken sound. I thought of her sister, the family's torn apart by this scheme, and Samantha, who was learning the worst truth about her father. You're right about one thing, I said softly. This ends tonight. I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward him. A live stream was playing, James's entire confession. It was being sent directly to Robert's FBI contact and backed up to secure servers. James's face turned pale. You didn't come alone, he said. Neither did you, I replied. Suddenly, flashlights lit up the park as FBI agents stepped out of the shadows. The men beside James melted away like smoke, leaving him alone as the agents closed in. Brenda, please, he begged, all the confidence gone. Everything I did was for us. For Samantha. No, I said, watching as the agents cuffed him. Everything you did was for yourself. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from an unknown number. This isn't over. The firm protects its own. I looked around. James was being led away. Carol was crying as agents reassured her that her sister was safe. The life I'd built was crumbling, and I knew the firm would fight back. My career might be over.
Our savings were probably gone.
And back in Robert's office, Samantha had just seen her father choose power over family. But standing there in the dark, watching James's world fall apart, I realized something important. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to see what's worth saving. My phone buzzed again. A text from Samantha. "Mom, are you okay?" No, I wasn't okay. But for the first time in weeks, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I thought about what I was fighting for. The holding cell at the federal building wasn't what I expected. James sat there in his expensive suit, looking both powerful and pitiful under the harsh fluorescent lights. 2 FBI agents stood outside, but they had given us privacy for this conversation. "You could have taken the deal," James said quietly. "We could have kept our family. Our families," I repeated, placing the USB drive Carol had given me on the table between us. "Let's talk about family, James. Let's talk about the 35 other families your firm destroyed this year alone."
His jaw tightened.
"You don't understand how things work in my world." "Oh, I understand perfectly." I slid a pile of papers across the table, bank statements, emails, surveillance logs. "You chose power over people, money over morals. And now you're choosing your firm over your daughter. Leave Samantha out of this. You brought her into this when you used her college fund to launder money," I said, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "When you threatened her future to protect your scheme." A knock at the door made us both jump. Samantha stood there, with Robert behind her. I hadn't expected her to come. I'd tried to protect her from this moment, but the determined look on her face reminded me so much of myself. "I want to talk to him," she said. James's face crumpled. "Sweetheart, don't." Samantha walked in and sat beside me, opening her laptop. "I found something in the spyware code. Something Mom doesn't know about yet." My stomach dropped. James's face turned pale. "The program wasn't just recording conversations," Samantha said, her voice shaking slightly. "It was making fake ones, creating false evidence to use against the client's spouses. And Mom." She turned the laptop toward us, showing a screen filled with audio files. "They were building a case against you too." The files listed doctor conversations, edited photos, and fabricated stories, an entire false history of misconduct with my students. "Insurance," James whispered. "In case I ever found out," I asked, the rage I'd been holding back boiling over. "In case I ever threatened your precious firm." James looked away. The firm required leverage on everyone involved. Even me. He reached for Samantha's hand, but she pulled it away. "I never wanted to use it," he said. "But you would have," Samantha said firmly. "Just like you used Carol's sister. Just like you've used everyone else." A commotion outside the room caught our attention. Through the window, I saw Carol being led in by more agents. Her face was streaked with tears, but there was a fierce determination in her eyes. Behind her, a line of men in suits, senior partners from the firm, followed, their powerful facades cracking as federal agents marched them in. "They're all turning on each other," Robert said from the doorway. "The whole house of cards is collapsing." James stood up suddenly, desperation in his eyes. "Brenda, please." "I can still fix this," James said. "The firm has connections, resources." "Stop," Samantha's voice cut through his excuses. "Just stop lying. Mom found the spyware, but I found the truth. I'm the one who cracked their encryption."
"Me."
"Your daughter. The one you were ready to sacrifice." She stood, gathering her laptop. "I used to think you were the smartest person I knew. Now I see you're just a bully who thought he could control everyone with their secrets." She turned to me. "Can we go home now, Mom?" James reached for her again. "Samantha, everything I did was for yourself," she said, cutting him off. "Mom protected me. You just protected your power." As we turned to leave, James called out one last time, "What happens now?" I looked at Samantha, my amazing daughter, who had grown stronger through all this. At Robert, who had become a true friend. And at Carol, visible through the window, who had finally chosen truth over fear. Then I looked at James one last time. "Now we rebuild," I said. "Without you." As we walked out, Samantha slipped her hand into mine. Behind us, James's world continued to fall apart. But ahead of us was something new, a future built on truth, not secrets. Strength, not power. Love, not control. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from the school board. Position secure. Evidence of the firm's manipulation cleared. "When can you return to teaching?" I smiled and squeezed Samantha's hand. We had a lot of healing to do, but for the first time in months, the path ahead was clear. 4 months later, I stood in our new apartment, watching Samantha set up her computer station in what used to be our dining room. The space was smaller than our old house, but it felt more like home.
Mom.
Samantha called, excitement in her voice. The cybersecurity program accepted me for their summer workshop. I walked over to see the acceptance email and couldn't help but think about how much had changed. The trial was still ongoing, but James had pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for testifying against the firm. The scandal had rocked the legal community, exposing similar schemes at law firms across the state. My phone buzzed, a text from Carol. "Coffee tomorrow? Barbara's coming too. We need your input on the shelter's new security system." That had been unexpected, how Carol had gone from an enemy to an ally. After everything settled, she threw herself into helping other women escape controlling relationships. Using her insider knowledge of surveillance tactics, she worked to strengthen the shelter's protections. Think fast. Samantha tossed me a small package. Inside was a USB drive shaped like a key. "It's clean," she said with a grin. I smiled, holding the drive in my hand. We still had challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. I checked my phone and smiled. We could laugh about it now, but those weeks of uncovering the spyware had changed both of us. Samantha had turned her pain into purpose and was now the youngest intern at Robert's new cybersecurity consulting firm. And me? I was back to teaching, but it felt different, better, more meaningful. "Professor Thompson," a student's voice called from my laptop. "Right, office hours," I said, snapping back to the present. Even over video chat, teaching felt more real now. "Just a minute." I called back, then turned to Samantha. "Dinner at 6. Barbara's bringing that pasta you like." "Can't," Samantha said, packing up her laptop. "Meeting Robert and his FBI friend about the workshop curriculum." She paused for a moment, then added softly, "Dad's sentencing is next week." The room felt heavier for a moment. We had both received letters from James, apologies, explanations, promises to change. But they sat unopened in my desk drawer. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. "You thought you won, but power always protects its own." I showed the message to Samantha, who was already typing.
"Traced it," she said.
Just another angry ex-partner from the firm. "Want me to forward it to Roberts?" "No," I said, deleting the message. Some people never learn that real power isn't about control.
The doorbell rang.
Barbara was early for our prep session. We were presenting at next month's educational conference about digital privacy in schools. It turned out my experience had value beyond just survival. "Coming." I called, but Samantha was already at the door. She and Barbara had grown close, bonding over coding and their shared love of cheesy sci-fi movies. "Hey, warrior women's," Barbara said, dropping bags of takeout on the counter. "Ready to change the world?" I glanced around our new home. Samantha's workspace was set up where she worked to help others protect their privacy. Conference materials were spread across my desk. And the friendship between Barbara and Carol had blossomed as they worked together to improve the shelter's security. "You know what's funny?" I said, grabbing plates. "When this all started, I thought it was about revenge. About making James pay for what he did to us." "It wasn't," Samantha said, setting up her laptop. "It was about deciding who we wanted to be after the betrayal." Barbara raised an eyebrow. "When did you get so wise, kid?" "When my mom showed me that strength isn't about having power over others," Samantha said, smiling at me. "It's about helping others find their power." My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Robert. Got that teaching position approved. You start the cybersecurity awareness program next semester. Samantha's curriculum suggestions were brilliant. I looked at Samantha and smiled. The road ahead wasn't perfect, but it was ours, and for the first time in a long time, the future felt bright. I looked at my daughter, this incredible person who had grown stronger, not in spite of the challenges we faced, but because we faced them together. I looked at Barbara, who had become more than just a friend, and at the life we had rebuilt from the wreckage of betrayal. Some scars never fully heal, but they remind us of how strong we are. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about tearing down your enemies. It's about creating something better from the ruins they left behind. All right, I said, opening the takeout. Let's change the world.